of salt.
So the salt over in Fremont, they don't evaporate that. That's just purely to supply the evaporators over here.
Yes. Yep. That's a simple way to look at it.
What is this salt used for?
It's industrial grade salt.
Okay.
So it's used for like bleaching of white products, mainly paper. If you're from back east, it's used for salt removal. It's also for chemical cleaning, but it's an industrial grade salt. We can get out, we can pick it up, we can touch it. Shouldn't eat it. It has impurities in it.
So it's never gone on the table on your person's table? Not really?
Not this stuff.
Oh.
Not this stuff. The site. So we developed what we call the 50-50 plan. So 50% of the land will be a development footprint. The other 50% is either restored wetlands, sports fields, parks, or open space. Again, we're up here. This is the new marina out there. This used to be Cargill land, also was sold to Mark Sanders to develop this. It was a lot easier for him to develop because he created Bay. So if you're familiar with BCDC, Bay Conservation and Development Commission, which was established in the late 60s, basically to protect the Bay from developers. I mean, they just filled the Bay. That's how development took place around the Bay Area, probably for 100 years. And it became very accelerated after World War II as the population had an accelerated growth from those who came through and said, I'm not going anywhere, I'm staying here. So they began to fill the Bay.
And speaking of population, how many people are going to come live here?
We've filed an application for 8,000 to 12,000 residences. At the 12,000 residences, that would be about 25,000 people. Built out in 5 stages over 25 to 30 years.
And you said this interchange is already a mess, so...
We propose not using it. I'll come to that.
Okay. Okay.
So that's kind of the 50-50 plan. What does the development site look like?
Could I ask one more question
Sure,
about the
absolutely.
50-50? This here, what is this stuff here? What is that stuff? I mean,
More salt.
oh, it is. It's
Yep.
just salt pond. It just looked different.
We'll
Okay.
see it. So the footprint
It's
is
not
always the
people's
same.
houses or...
No. That will actually, that part of it would be, so where you see that here is here.
No.
So the outline here is the same as the outline there.
Yeah. Okay.
So 435 acres of restored wetlands, restored at what's called 3 tiers: low marsh, mid marsh, high marsh. The high marsh is designed because we can engineer it to be more protective of species because of humidity. It's less likely to be inundated during a flood event. Built out over 25 to 30 years in stages, 5 to 6 different stages. Seaport Boulevard along here, sports parks, soccer fields, 4-H club, community garden, school, soccer fields. This is the recycle center. In California, any water that comes out of the sky and falls on a piece of property that's more than 5 acres, none of that water can go off that property, off that site, until it's been recycled. We'll capture it and use it as part of our recycle program. That's what these are. We had originally hoped to be able to use them for public use, kayaks, things of that nature. The amount of recycling that you have to do to make that safe for people is excessive. So now it's more a design and a place to capture water runoff.
Just like Foster City that has the waterways throughout, or
Those waterways they can use. You'll see boats and
No.
little craft on them, but they also, that portion has tidal action. The bay the bay can come into those large sections. Nothing on here would allow that. Running through the spine of the property is some form of public transit system. We don't know yet whether it would be steel-wheeled or rubber-wheeled, a la a trolley, if you think of it in terms of a trolley. The reason for that is the ability to connect to downtown and Caltrain. So we've also proposed that we would build, and I'll show you where it would be, an overpass over 101 around the Stanford campus, and it would be for the transit system, pedestrians, and bicycles.
and then if Caltrain goes away, then BART would take over.
Caltrain will never go away, and BART will never come down here.
Just wanted to hear what you had to say. Okay.
I was here when they first started building BART, and they should have built BART from day one around the whole bay. Personal opinion.
Of course.
It's a great system, but I live in San Francisco. They couldn't even get it to an international airport.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
if you think about it,
Really?
you couldn't even get BART to go from downtown San Francisco to an international airport.
Huh.
That's how controversial it was. That's why it stopped originally in Daly City. And 18 years later, it goes to Millbrae. But it should have been built as a ring around the entire city from day one. It'll never be done now. It's far too expensive, far too controversial. But what we propose is an overpass. And the reason for that, the Redwood City has in their new general plan that they adopted last year a desire to upgrade Broadway and bring a trolley system to downtown and to the Caltrain station. So what we've said to them, you could marry our private dollars and go seek public dollars so that there could be a united system. Also, this is where the proposed ferry terminal might be. The idea to link all of this together is something that's been proposed. Let's see. Briefly, sea level rise, BCDC, Bay Conservation Development Commission. You may have read recently that they have been trying to develop new language that governs how they control their regulatory permit authority. BCDC has regulatory authority for the first 100 feet of land around the entirety of the bay. So anywhere you have bay, from the high water mark to 100 feet inland, you have to get a permit from them. Anything you want to do, anything for anybody. So if they want to do any work on a pier in San Francisco, you need a BCDC permit. Since we're going to change the edge of our property, we would need a BCDC permit. BCDC promulgated these new maps, and what they're trying to do is get people to begin to think about the eventuality of sea level rise in the Bay Area. So what they have said is consensus science, and I use that term cautiously because there are people who still are in denial, and there are people who say we're all going to drown. Consensus science, and this is what BCDs had very cautiously used, says by mid-century we'll have 16 inches, by end of century 55 inches. I find it personally difficult to get my head around 55 inches, but something's coming, the degree to it is an unknown. This map represents in light blue what 55-inch inundation would represent. They wanted to get everybody's attention, so for example, Foster City is already levied. Redwood Shores is already levied. So, but they did this purposely to make people understand the dramatic nature of what could happen. Actually, if you think about it, by mid-century, the bay goes back to its original size. You go back to what it was in 1850.
Oh, if it comes up 55 inches.
Right. No, if it comes up 16 inches.
Oh, 16.
Light blue. So it basically would be the same size that was in 1850. Of course, in 1850, it was ringed by wetlands. This area out here was wetlands. Everything at Bay's Edge was wetland at some point in our history. Yeah. The dark blue is the 55 inches. This is 101, so significant amounts on the other side. So eventually we're going to have to armor our shoreline around the entire bay. When we do it, how we do it, is yet to be decided. That just gives you a little forecast. What I'd like to do is give you each one of these, and inside on the left, you'll see two little pieces of paper. They have letters on them, and what we'll be able to do is you'll be able to follow both on the Saltworks itself and where we are on the development map. Other salt manufacturing facilities, for example, the Mexico government opened a great big one that simply takes ocean water in. And there's different kinds of salt. There's salt that comes out of the bay or out of water or the ocean. There's salt that comes out of mines.
Now, are Morton and Lowry still around then too?
Morton is. I don't know about Lowry. We have no relationship with them because ours is an industrial grade salt. So remember I was talking about the port and their concerns. about having residential housing too close to them. So we had talked about, one, this would be a much larger buffer. Seaport Boulevard might just become that road there. Well, how would you get to work? What we've proposed is a parallel road along 101, and that road would take residents as well as people getting off 101 either at Whipple or Marsh to come up to Seaport. So this would become primarily a industrial road from about this point on.
Oh, so that's why they did such a shitty job repaving it, because it's only going to be for industrial in the future. No, whoever did this, I couldn't believe it. I mean, there's a dip up there by the light that's really...
Oh, but that dip's been there forever. I mean, that's it.
Oh, has it?
Oh, that light there? Oh, it's a terrible dip. You can't, don't travel in the right-hand lane.
They didn't fix it.
Yeah. I would have thought they would at least put a little fill in there. You're right.
Yeah. Part of the reason I'm here is because I flew over these bays in and out of San Francisco for years, but because of those little railroad car things down there on the tracks, Fuelhauser had a... No, I saw part of it.
I saw that too, the California Gold.
But I missed all of it. I only saw part of it, you know. So he was talking about the railroad track
Was that at
system.
this site?
Well, you'll see
I don't know.
small gauge railroad tracks on this site, and there are some more of the cars.
But was his show here?
Whose?
Fuelhauser from California's Gold.
I don't know.
He had a show on PBS or something. Oh, okay.
So,
I thought it was here, but I'm not sure.
if you take out your little maps, hold them up like this, so A is on the bottom. We're at A. So, okay, so from A to E, the end of this road is 2 miles. Remember, this half has been in salt harvesting since 1901. This half up here in 1943 was permitted to be diked and enclosed. Again, there's no hydraulic action between this site and the bay and this site. That makes a big difference. We will need so many permits from so many organizations, it's just mind-boggling. One of them is obviously the U.S. Corps of Engineers. The U.S. Corps of Engineers sent a letter to us at our request when we submitted what's called a preliminary application. In other words, the way the system works is until Redwood City gives their decision, none of the other organizations, BCDC, Fish and Wildlife, the U.S. Corps, will accept your formal application. There's a logic to that. But you don't wait to have conversations with them till the nth hour. So from day one, we have been talking to BCDC, Fish and Wildlife, the Corps of Engineers, to say, this is what we're doing, this is what we're planning, what do you think? And they weigh in and say, we don't like this, you have a problem here, so that when you finally show up at their door with an application, neither one is surprised. So the Corps issued a letter saying that for application purposes, when we were working with the application, for application purposes, this site would be treated in its current use circumstances, not its historical use circumstances. The reason for that is there's no hydraulic action between the bay and the interior of the levees. Therefore, there is no wetlands in its current use circumstances. The EPA, in fairness, 3 months later came out and said, we don't necessarily agree with what you've said, which did not surprise anybody. And everybody can change their mind, but that gives you a little view of some of the steps that we will need to go through during this lengthy process. What we're going to do is we're going to go up along here, out here, along the exterior of the property. The water you see on here now is from the rain. Ordinarily, this time of year, it's all white. Leslie Salt used to own this. Cargill bought this and land on the other side of Seaport Boulevard over by Seaport Britannia in 1978 from Leslie Salt. You'll see a lot of the structure is wood, so these gates you see, the floodgates you'll see are wood. The reason for that, metal corrodes very quickly. So I'm not exaggerating when I say when they want to move the liquid off of that, they literally pull up that gate right there. Old-fashioned business.
how many more years would there be potentially salt harvesting going on?
The salt harvesting would continue indefinitely, and if the project were not approved, Cargill would just continue salt harvesting. Now, remember I talked about the Williamson Act. I'm not sure you were in the room at the time. The state of California has what's called the Williamson Act. It was passed in 1967 or 68. It allows certain types of property, cattle ranches, agriculture, mining, extraction, to be if you sign a 10-year agreement, keeping the land in that use, it puts a lid on your property taxes. The reason it was done was because vast amounts of land were being lost in the agricultural sector to pay property taxes. So we have already sent a letter to Redwood City commencing the withdrawal from that. So we sent that a year ago, so we have 9 years left. Should the project not be approved, Cargill would just withdraw the letter and say we will continue to harvest salt.
Well, what do you guys do then?
We go home.
Write it off or what?
That's it's huge.
Gamble.
It's huge. Now, let's address that. I've never worked in real estate until the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm marketing, communications, politics, things of that nature. What I have learned is you invest vast sums, tens of millions. I mean, this is large dollars. Mm-hmm. If you are successful, it can be very profitable. Mm-hmm. If you're not, you go home.
So you make up with the ups and downs, between the ups and downs.
It's a high risk, high return investment, especially in California. It's not true. DMB has projects in Arizona, Hawaii, Southern California. There's a very beautiful one up at Martis Camp up in Truckee. Some of them do very well. Some of them, have not. So you see railroad tracks both on the left and on the right, up on that little ridge right there. They used to harvest the salt, put it in those little cars that you saw, and it went under Seaport Boulevard and was put on barges to be taken over to Fremont to be processed and cleaned. Now they put it in trucks. So that's about a ½ inch of water on there. That'll be gone in a week. The whole thing was white, like you see to my left, before the rain. So the harvest this year will be delayed probably 3 to 6 weeks because of the rain.
Yeah, that was an early storm for this time of year. Right?
So the harvesting will be delayed.
So they can keep all these railroad tracks and have the little choo-choo trains that they have in the parks.
Well, what they plan on doing is, should the project be entitled, they are going to build a little salt museum. So on the site would be a little museum that talks about salt harvesting in the bay. It was actually done by the Indians way back when.
Oh.
But salt manufacturing as a business, like so many things in California, started after the gold rush because salt is a preservative. So it was the 1850s when you began to see areas diked off and turned into salt harvesting or to salt ponds.
That's when humans got that urge for salt, because of the preservative thing, and that's what got us hooked on it, probably.
Well, in this area, but salt as a preservative has been used going back to the Roman times.
Oh, really? Oh.
So, again, if we look at our maps, we're approaching sea. So we're kind of in the middle of the property. If you look at your other little map, you see that we're in the wetlands. So everything to my left is part of the wetlands restoration. We're even on the outside of the park.
What's between C and H there, that little lake-looking, the dark spot?
We're going to see that. We'll be driving out there. So we'll be out here.
No, that's another salt pond, or salt.
Salt, yes.
Okay.
So you have these are called pickle ponds, and these are called salt harvesting beds. These have a hard packed engineered bottom. So they are a hard packed bottom with an ever so slight gradient on them so that you can move it from one pond to the next pond. Briefly about this. This is a levee. It's 3 miles long. Its total is 3 miles long. It's designed unlike other levees. So for every foot it goes up, it goes out 10 feet. Traditional levees like Foster City, Redwood Shores are called 1-1. So for every 1 foot they go up, they go out 1 foot. That's why you see that they have a kind of peaked look to them. This is designed to be more like the little park that's on the edge of Pacific Shores, if you've ever gone out there for a little walk. A very low rise, and it becomes a 100-acre park. It's large enough where you can put volleyball courts on it, you can put picnic areas on it. So it's 3 miles long. It is part of the levee system, but designed to become a public.
Seismically, how does this area stack up to other landfill kind of areas like Foster City or
Sure.
Mountain View?
Yep. Let me give you a couple of maps. If you would pass these back, I'd appreciate this one for you. This is a map from USGS, United States Geological Survey. It shows the yellow is moderate, the red is high risk. Foster City, Redwood Shores are all yellow. In the Loma Prieta earthquake of 1989, we all saw the extensive damage in San Francisco. Almost no damage in Foster City, Redwood Shores, Seaport Britannia, right over here, office complex. The reason is, bay mud, if properly prepared, is a very good building foundation. It's such a very fine particulate matter that if you take 90% of the moisture out of it, it's like a very hard clay. You can't build on just that, obviously. But if it is engineered properly, you can build on it as Foster City has done, as Redwood Shores have done. So we're about the middle of this road. So we're about halfway between C and F. That's where the proposed transit system would be. So if this were a built environment, somewhere right along here would be the transit system, and we could get on that to either go through the spine of the property or over 101 to downtown. So as you look straight ahead, that's the Stanford campus. To the left of the last white building is their parking lot, and we've had conversations with them about that's where the overpass, which is a transit overpass, in other words, not cars, just for bicyclists, pedestrians, that's where it would land. And then that would connect with the city's hoped-for transit system running down Broadway.
Yeah, downtown Redwood City draws so many people in the summer because of the concerts and they just want to make it bigger.
What are these pipes?
These are part of the piping system. They can move brine on this property either by gravity, or if they want to move it more quickly, they can move it through the pump. We're right about on the edge of where the sports fields would begin. So the sports field would go all the way that way, all the way to my left, and they'd start about here. So this would be right in here, would be about this road on the edge of the sports complex. It's 55 acres. It has 9 baseball fields, 16 soccer fields, a 4-H community farm.
Oh, what kind of bird is that?
A little tern.
Yeah, is it? Okay. I'd have to look it up in the book.
So 5 mobile home parks, 2 here, 3 down here.
Boy, I never saw the backside of it.
Yeah.
You probably see where I worked then and where it used to flood in our parking lot. Wow.
So the flooding problem
Wow.
is along the back edge of this property,
Yeah.
along the whole back edge of this property, is a detention basin, a water detention basin. It's been there for a long time. It can accommodate 45 acre feet. An acre foot is 1 foot of water covering an acre. it can accommodate 45 acre-feet until it fills up and starts to overflow.
You're not talking about this ditch. You're talking about something on the
No,
other
I'm
side.
talking about this ditch. Right on the other side is the ditch. We'll see a better view of it about as I move down.
Okay. Huh.
The city's problem is that there are 5 pumps located on that side.
Mm.
Those pumps pump into here. They don't pump into the bay. They pump into the detention basin.
Mm.
During a winter storm event, they fill this basin up pretty quickly. So it's just on the other side of that mountain. We'll see it better when we get up to this corner. What we have proposed is that on our site, on our land, we would dedicate enough land to create a bathtub, basically a bathtub, that could accommodate, during a flood event, 400 acre-feet. And basically what would happen is, once this filled up, instead of overflowing onto East Bay Shore Road and on Broadway on the other side, the water would then flow onto our property and sit in the bathtub. You have a high tide, the gate's closed, it has a place to sit. Then we would clean it, recycle it, before we would release it into the bay. You have a high tide, low tide every 12 hours. Tide goes down, the city opens the gate, the water flows back out.
You would clean it, recycle, put it back in the bay.
Yep.
Something they were doing Marin, they were going to put it back in the bay, but they were going to make it the same as the bay water before they put it back in the bay. You're just talking about putting clean water, mixing it with the salt water?
It would be recycled water. I don't know
And
how in the world...
Mix in the bay itself.
I don't know how in the world Marin could suggest that they could make new bay water.
I don't think that project ever.
I don't
That's what they were
get that.
talking about.
I don't get that, to be honest.
Okay.
with you. And I've not heard that either.
Probably why it didn't work.
3 of those. 1 for you. So as we look at this, if you'll hold it up this way, so our property's on the top, the blue represents the watershed. So that's the watershed that dumps the water into Redwood City. The little light blue is the detention basin. So these communities, because of the way the landscape is, this is where the water gets dumped. It's not enough. So what happens? The next several pictures are January of this year. That's Broadway in front of Stanford Hospital.
Wow.
The next picture is right back to my right. So if you see that clump of trees right back there, those are the trees and this is the detention basin filled.
Wow. That's pretty high.
So that's what happens during a flood event.
But they could catch their dinner.
Not in this water.
No.
So now you have a better view of the detention basin.
Huh.
The reason you have 2 levees here, the one we are driving on and the one to my left, is Cargill has always been concerned about a breach of this levee, which would contaminate the brine on my left-hand side. Once that is contaminated, it's no good.
It undoes years of work.
And since there is no tidal action, we couldn't dump it back into the bay. So they're very cautious about the maintenance of the levee to my left, which is their responsibility, and this is a publicly maintained levee. But all this floods.
Because it would flood out into that street on Haven,
Yes.
where the horse dealer is now. Huh.
So ahead of us, you can see that's Menlo Park's Bayfront Park. That used to be a garbage dump. That's how it was able to get that height. Their recycling treatment plant is out on the tip. So while Menlo Park is opposed to our project, it's okay that they use former wetlands to get rid of their poop.
Why would they be opposed to this project?
Menlo Park is very environmentally oriented,
Right.
and they think that this should be returned to the bay and returned to wetlands.
100%.
100%.
100%.
Not 50%.
No. So, if you would turn the map this way, so that the F is on the bottom now. F on the bottom. you find G. We are at G. That's the bend in this road. If you look at the other one, this is where on this edge the wetlands start. So from here to the edge of our property, which is down by that little brown shack, everything to my left will be wetlands. Menlo Park and others, but this is a very controversial project, very controversial. Menlo Park and Belmont have issued resolutions in opposition to this project, as has Atherton, excuse me. What we've said is we're willing at our expense during the first phase build out, which is 5 to 7 years, we would at our expense restore 435 acres. That has gained no traction with the environmental community. There are 36,600 acres of wetlands waiting to be restored that are in public hands. So around the Bay Area, there are 36,600 acres awaiting restoration. Save the Bay, great organization, but our main opponent, have done great things for many, many years. They say it would cost $1.4 billion to restore those 36,000 acres. Not included in that 1.4, we've talked to David Lewis about this, the executive director, is the cost of protecting the dry land side if we have sea level rise between wetlands and the built environment. Bear Island, just north of this, would be the best example of that. So if you drive north from here, just get on the, as you go past Whipple, look off to your right, that's Bear Island. A very successful 3,300 acre restoration that's in process. Go by there during high tide, think of 16 more inches. Wetlands traditionally have grown by sedimentation drop. Historically, storm event stirs up the mud, tide comes up, goes back out, drops the sediment on the wetlands. It works very effectively. There are parts in the very South Bay that grow by 2 inches a year. So it has historically been very effective. The problem that the Bay Area is facing is the mud that was there from the 1850s hydraulic mining. As much dirt was removed from the Sierras as was removed from the Panama Canal. The ecology of the bay changed during the gold rush. It used to be much more pristine, larger harvest beds, clams, crabs. So much mud came down that changed the bay in its entirety, a layer of mud. That mud now is disappearing. So wetlands, Bear Island is very successful because the port's there. The port does annual dredging. They take the dredged material, put them on the wetlands. It's helped enormously to grow that wetland successfully. The problem is, though, if you have sea level rise to the degree that some say, the wetlands are also going to be underwater. The wetlands are a great thing. The best answer for the Bay Area would be a ribbon of wetlands around the entire bay. They're a great buffer. That would be actually the best solution. But many parts will still have to be armored on the interior side. Good view of the canal. Atherton Creek to my right. That is where, if you go back to the watershed, that's where the water comes out of Menlo Park, Atherton, Portola, and Woodside. During a storm event, the water is against the bottom of that bridge. This is Haven.
Oh, that's, yeah, okay.
So you know where you are. So this is filled. Brushes against the bottom of that bridge.
Yes, yes, it does. Okay.
This is the floodgate. If we would like to get out, we may, no problem. That's where the floodgates are. This is low tide, so you see a lot of the brown mud. During a high tide, the water will entirely cover the little brown mud that you see. So what happens is during a storm event, this fills up. So there's the detention basin right there to my right. That fills up. It's high tide. The gates close. When the tide goes down, they open the gates and this empties. The problem is during a severe event, the detention basin is too small to capture enough water. So what we've said is, again, we would provide a temporary bathtub for the water. This is also, remember I mentioned, where does the water come in from Fremont? There's the pipe. That's where it comes in. So it goes under the bay, comes onto our property here. Straight ahead is what a wetlands might look like. And if you look at this right here, remember I had pointed out on this, it's very hard, that's why I like to get people out here to understand the scale. This would grow by 4 times. So add 3 more of this to my left, and that takes you back to that curve in the road. So all of this would be the start of this side of the wetlands up against Menlo Park's park.
So would you expect to have a fairly positive response from fish and wildlife, since you are planning on increasing the wetlands?
Nothing will be easy. Nothing will be easy. We're going to have to demonstrate that the 435 acres, or what it eventually is, and one of the things I've learned very quickly is that any plan you submit changes rather dramatically. I'm new to the real estate business, so when they filed the application in May of 2009, I thought, okay, we're done. Not even close. So it'll change, the shape will change, the density will probably change, but with Fish and Wildlife, what they want to have demonstrated is that you've done things that improve wildlife opportunity and wildlife habitat. We think that the restoration, as opposed to this use, accommodates that goal.
And the 435 acres is tidal restoration.
Yes. We will
So the other
build.
50%, the other part that makes it 50% of that is the
Is sports parks.
public recreation and permanent open space.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
So it'd be like the 50-acre sports parks. The interesting thing for them. Remember we talked about these little water features that actually capture the water?
Uh-huh.
You can't see it on here, but this little tiny, on this map, ribbon, they're 75 feet wide.
Oh.
So when you're out here, the reason I like to bring people out here is I want you to get a sense of this is a big slug of land, and you can do a lot with it.
Do you know the percentage of open space to recreation space? Do you have a guess? Oh, because there's 1,000 acres left.
Well, 435, which would be what, 30%? I think probably 30%
Yeah.
of so 30% of that. You have another 55 to 60 acres, which is the dedicated sports complex. I can't do the math in my head. The development footprint, which includes roads, sidewalks, is 47%. So
Right.
all of the literally the built environment.
Sorry. Yeah. I'm doing the math wrong.
Oh.
I'm supposed to cut that in half, so that's what I said.
And you were
Okay,
you were
alright.
building our submarines.
No, that's fine. No, I was only installing the sonars on. I didn't build the outsides. Okay.
Is that because
And old age is setting in.
is that because they gave you a math test and said, no, we're not letting this guy on the outside?
Okay. No, that's good.
So we're at E. So we're at the end of our property. Remember we started at A. So 2 miles. So if you look down this road, it's 2 miles to where we started. So we're on the outside edge of the property. That's Greco Island.
Is that walkable? Are there...
No.
No?
One of the challenges that wetlands have is unless they create paths on them, which usually have to be some sort of
Man-made.
man-made, like a wooden dock.
I mean, nothing's high enough then because of the tides, you're saying. No land is high enough
That's not the problem. It's goo.
Yeah.
If you got out and walked there, I'd have to come and get you.
Oh,
It's mud.
okay.
It's not hard. It's mud.
Okay.
So wetlands, while people say they create great recreational opportunity, yes, if there are those kinds of built environments put on them, and also for kayakers and for boaters, you can go in and out, quite nice. It's also good for, there are seal populations. I mean, it's very beneficial. But to suggest that it can be used for recreational purposes is a little bit of a stretch.
Okay.
Now, is any waterfowl hunting allowed over here, like on Greco Island, or?
Not to my knowledge.
I know they do allow some waterfowl hunting over on the Fremont side.
And I do know they allow it up in Sassoon Bay.
Yeah.
I have no idea if it's allowed here. I know that there are no duck blinds out there because my boss is a hunter. And I know that there are no duck blinds out there.
Who owns Greco Island?
Part
Or
of it is
just part of the bay.
no, part of its own. Interesting question. There's no such thing as part of the bay. Everybody owns something.
Oh, like when you
Unless it's
go across the
open
bridge.
water?
Yeah.
No, you go across the bridge.
O-
It says
o-
here's
open
San
water
Mateo. Here's
Is owned by someone.
Is it?
Yes.
Like the
So-
West
so-
Point Slough and
so-
the first slough?
Redwood City.
Okay.
So Redwood City owns
Okay.
this. That's Menlo Park owns this portion of Greco Island. Redwood City goes out to about the middle of the bay here. Most of Redwood City's acreage is underwater. So if you look at the total recreation called Redwood City, most of it's in the bay. But that's not uncommon because someone owns everything. It's like water. I didn't realize till I got involved in this. Someone owns every drop of water. Now it may be a municipality, but generally speaking, it's a private owner. Someone owns every drop of water. For example, where do we get our water? We said to Redwood City that we wouldn't do anything that increased your taxes, and we wouldn't use a drop of the water you get from SFPUC. DMB found a private owner of water in Kern County. It's called the Nickel family. So they have pre-1911 water rights, which means it's uninterruptible. You can't take it. I mean, water is so arcane in this state. If any of you ever become a lawyer or come back as a lawyer, come back as a water lawyer. It's very complicated. So we bought 8,000 acre-feet annually from the Nickel family in Kern County. Redwood City uses 10,000 acre-feet a year from SFPUC. How will we get our water here? We won't. Water moves from Northern California to Southern California. We will do an exchange with someone who owns water in the north and say, instead of having that water you own contractually go south, we would like it to turn right and come into the peninsula. We will replace that water with the water from Kern County, which will go into the system and continue to move south. So we don't bring the water here, we do an exchange of water rights with somebody.
Yeah.
We will become a seller of water. Eventually we will become a seller of water. There have been conversations with a number of municipalities in San Mateo and Santa Clara that have a water deficit. This would be something that we would be able to engage with them.
The Nickel family saw the opportunity to make more money.
Yeah.
Someone owns every drop of water.
Yeah, if you want a great book on California water rights, read Cadillac Desert.
Yeah.
It's an amazing
It is.
book.
He's right. It's just, we're in the top corner, so we're right out here on this little edge.
Okay. Why does this pond look like it has a lot of like little islands in it?
Because they're using this pond. They're not harvesting
They're not
from this.
harvesting from
They're
it.
not harvesting from this pond.
It's just evaporating.
Mm-hmm. So when they want to, which they're going to have to do this year because of the recent rain, when they want to accelerate the harvesting off of these harvesting beds, they move the brine onto other parts of the property. Eventually, it will become salt, but they can move water around to accelerate the extraction. We came from over there, straight ahead. There's where you all work. Let me talk a little bit about traffic, because when you have a residential community of 25,000 people, you have a lot of cars. That's one of the reasons for the transit system. But let's first look at the bigger picture. San Mateo County is a jobs-rich county. 333,000 jobs in San Mateo County. That's the good news. 194,000 of those 333, 58% do not live in this county. You.
Yep.
So the congestion that we see every day is because we've been building jobs, but not houses close to those jobs. Facebook would be an ideal example of that. They hope to grow to 9,000. With great fanfare, Menlo Park was thrilled to approve that. But Menlo Park has not approved any significant housing for 12 years. The object of this kind of development, and it's a high-density development. Think of the Marina District in San Francisco. It's all attached housing. There are no houses with yards around them. It's all attached housing. You can do that and get a lot more density. It's all flat-roofed, 40% are solared. That already delivers 75% of all of our energy needs. And our engineers say that with the lightning speed that technology is changing, eventually you'll have 100% of your needs. We also recycle all of our own waste. That creates energy additionally. So it's a high-density project. Think in terms of where people used to have or aspire to a house that had its backyard. This is more designed to your backyard is those giant open spaces that is going to be shared in the community. A lot of people who are opposed to this say that the housing could be built on El Camino. It could be built as infill. The answer to that is yes. But I would ask you, if you're familiar or have driven on El Camino, is that where you would aspire to have your home? It's not a neighborhood, it's not a community, it doesn't have parks and schools, but it is housing, and we need a lot more housing because of the enormous jobs housing imbalance. Whether this project gets built or not, that housing problem and the commute problem is not going to go away. So we're on the outer edge. This is Bay to my right. So this would have tidal action. You can see the brown. Pretty little crane.
Crane? Are you sure?
Maybe not. Not a bird guy.
Okay, no, it's either
A what?
egret or a
An
heron.
egret. You're right.
Okay.
Probably an egret.
All right. So that means what?
That turn we saw might not have been a turn.
Oh,
Is that
come
what you're saying?
on, you know.
Is that what you're telling us?
There's a pretty bird.
That one I'd have to look.
Yeah. No, it's the salt that makes the suds.
Where are you looking?
It looks like
Little
suds. No, I see
soapy
some
froth.
over here, but you see it more when you're coming across the Dumbarton Bridge. All this sudsy stuff.
I could.
Sure.
It shouldn't be salt.
Oh.
I don't know how it
There's
could be.
a little bunch of it back there on the right side.
So we're at H on this document. So I'm not going to go to the end of that road, but we're basically on the top of the property. 2 miles left to right, 1.75 miles top to bottom. So H would be the outer edge of the restoration.
What is that tractor?
The tractor we see ahead of us, there are 4 of those on the site. They're amphibious, and you can put different kinds of equipment on top of them. So you can put you can put a dredge on it, and they can run across the salt because of the way they're designed. So they're designed to be able to put different pieces of equipment on it for whatever purposes they need.
Is there any concern with heavy metal accumulation in any of this water?
Yes. There's not very many toxic metals in it because, again, it's bay salt. But in order to prepare the land for development, the cells, the extraction cells, this here, they're hard-packed bay bottom. Salt has probably penetrated 2 to 6 inches. You can wash that out. You literally, on those, you can wash it out. This area, which is called pickles, if the salt penetration is probably down as much as 8 to 13 feet, you're going to have to extract that mud and clean it up, put it back. The entire site is proposed to have probably 2 feet of fill put onto it. It's a combination of rock, soil, all different kinds of things, and that becomes the foundation for the building site.
Well, that's a lot of semi-loads of...
It's a lot.
But why is the salt bad? You're talking about heavy metals other than salt.
Well, the salt's going to kill any...
Plant life.
Plant life.
Yeah.
Oh, because it's so
But wait,
concentrated.
the tidal marsh restoration area, this is salt, right? This is a salt marsh.
Yes.
Okay, so it just has to have some of the salt in it?
So that portion, what she's talking about up here, which is like, for example, where we are, remember we were at H,
Yeah.
so that's going to have to be cleaned. Not as much, though. There'll be different degrees of cleaning because you're not going to grow trees.
But
on it.
everything on the inside of the levee needs to have that.
Has to be prepared.
Salt has to be completely gone.
Has to be prepared. You have to clean it in some form or fashion. As I said, it's easy on the hard packed one because there's been not much penetration. On the pickle ponds, which are soft bay mud, yes, you're going to have to go down fairly deeply, take it out, clean it up, and put it back. Wow.
It looks like snow around the edge.
Yeah.
Little rivers.
Some of these look like far someplace in another planet.
Yeah.
So, right to my right, that's bay. That's this little piece right here. See how this little finger comes down? That's what that is. So that's bay mud. So depending on what time of day we come out here, you would see it high tide or low tide. Now, rowers come in here, canoers will come in here.
And they still would after.
Well,
On the,
yes, because
the first
you have
slew
this.
just continue. Yeah.
It's designed, however, to have no contact between the built environment and the restoration because of feral animals. Bear Island, just north of this, has got feral animals on it, wildcats. So it inhibits the opportunity for breeding and nesting if there are feral animals allowed to get on it. So it's designed not to have contact with the dry or built environment.
You mentioned seals. They come in here too?
They can. There's actually a very small group of seals in Bear Island on the outer edge. If you go there doing low tide, I've been out with BIAC, which is a rowing club, and I've seen them. So again, we're still in the restoration area here. Coming up back, we're coming back to sea. Sorry for the bumpiness. Back on the main road. To my right, this is salt right here, stacked up. Looks like
It
dirt.
looks like dirt?
It's not.
That's
Salt.
the harvest.
Yep.
That's been harvested.
So they can harvest from this, put it in trucks, take it over to the other side,
Huh.
clean it, and sell it.
You know, maybe Huel's show was all over there.
Could be.
You know, but that's where because he was doing the processing, everything, the harvesting, the process, the whole thing. So maybe part was here, part was over there. No, I didn't know there was anything over there, I guess. Where's the river in Redwood City?
The creek
Whatever, yeah.
on the other side.
Oh, yeah.
It's on the other side. Do you know where the houseboats are?
There's houseboats in Redwood City. I didn't know.
Yes.
That. Okay.
If you take Maple
Yeah.
and you drive on Maple as far as you can towards the water,
Oh, past the police station.
past the police station,
Past Haven. Wait a minute. Past. No, is that Haven? No.
Bloomquist.
Yeah. Yeah.
and-
Okay. Yeah.
You go about another 100 feet at a dead end. Turn left.
Oh.
Dead ahead there is Bayak, which is the Bear Island Aquatic Center. That's the rowing club. If you continue on, there's about 20 houseboats in there.
Oh. But that's where the river comes out. Where does it go through Redwood City?
It goes
Because it's all covered up
to
in the
about
city, right?
to about veterans, and they've covered it up.
Oh. Okay. Oh.
That was unwise. It should have been left open and expanded. I mean, think about being downtown, buying a sandwich at lunch, and going and sitting in
Any river walk, yeah, attracts stuff. People.
any opportunity to be, in my opinion, next to the bay.
This marina has always been here for a long time, but the marina down there where you guys are is new.
That
It's
was
part of.
yes, that's brand new. That was
Part of all that
that was
building.
sold to Mark Sanders by Cargill 5 years ago. It was his dream to build a marina. So that was Pond 10. It was sold to Mark, and he's opened a very nice marina down there. I'm going to do a quick right-hand turn here, then get you back to the offices.
Maybe that dips right there.
Come from looked like this in 1978. Exact same. This was salt harvesting. So where we were, if we were driving over here, 32 years ago, none of this would have been here. It would have looked just like that sign.
But this was easier to build because people weren't as concerned about the environment 30 years ago than they are now.
That's true.
Yeah,
Yep,
so-
absolutely true. Little special footnote, when Steve Jobs was fired, he opened next in this building.
Oh, really? Cute.
That's where I work.
You mean
Over
Apple
there.
or next?
It's actually on the Med Pharmaceuticals right next door to.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, I come to a lot of biotech companies over there.
So I'm going to turn right here.
This is another green.
Straight ahead, you see
It's the same one,
you
yeah.
see a barge off at 11 o'clock, or now 10 o'clock. Remember I said the little railroad tracks came under Seaport Boulevard and brought it over to here. It went on to that pier and was put onto barges, and that's how they used to take it over to Fremont for processing and cleaning.
You said Alcor?
Alcomed.
Oh, Alchem. What do they make?
Antibodies for human oncology drugs.
If anybody knows people that want to get into biofuels, Codexis here is hiring big time.
Is that right?
Yeah, all the biofuel, Soldezyme, Codexis, and Amyris.
healthy.